In this video, I'm going to show you how to make wine with household things that you can buy from Walmart and Farm and Home, as well as just any sort of fruit that you would like to use. Particularly here, I have blackberries and strawberries. I have altogether 5 pounds of fruit. I've got 2 pounds of strawberries and 3 pounds of blackberries. I also have two canisters that are a gallon each. And then I went to Farm and Home and I got 5 feet of this 1/8 inch hose. And what I did is I looked to find hosing or tubing that was already described to be purpose for transporting water. The description was potable water on it, and I felt as though if it was able to transport water, that would do just fine in transporting gases that are coming out of each canister as the fermentation goes on. So we've got fruit, we have 2-gallon canisters, and you'll see that for this hosing to stay on these lids as well as sealed, I have this tube of caulk, which I believe is about $4. These canisters were about $2, and then the tubing was about 20 cents per foot. And then the only other thing you'll need is sugar. As well as, and you don't need this, but it is something that speeds up the process of how quickly the fruit and sugar and water turns to wine. And it is called Red Star Premier Rouge Active Dry Yeast. And it's particularly made for making wine. It says on the directions that 1 packet is enough to make 5 gallons of wine. So what I did is I've already went and I've divvied this up into 5 equal portions so that I know whenever I put it into each canister, I'll use 1/5 of this packet and then 1/5 of this packet. What you can do is you can get a 5-gallon canister, bucket, or whatever you want to use, and just use 1 packet if you would like to do that. So I want to explain kind of what is going on and why it takes about 2 weeks for the wine to be made. So as we put the fruit into these canisters and we cut off the oxygen going to the fruit, we are going to allow the fruit to more or less eat the sugar and create wine as a byproduct. And whenever it comes to this hosing coming out of it, what we're going to do is have the hosing down into a water well. And if you can think about this hosing being in water, nothing is going to be able to come back up and into the canisters, but instead, as the fermentation process goes on, there will be carbon dioxide released, and it will build up within these canisters and push its way out. And if, say, my hand is a water level, and the tubing goes down a little bit further, there will continuously be bubbles coming out of this hosing below the water level. And it's known as a water lock, meaning that the carbon dioxide is able to get out of the canisters and the fermentation is able to continue, while at the same time we're not allowing anything to backtrack back into the fermentation process. So I'm going to start by getting everything into each canister. I'm going to start with the fruit, and at this point I'm assuming that you would have already washed off your fruit and made certain that there wasn't any bad fruit that maybe looked like moldy or something that you want to eat personally already. So what I'm going to do is divvy up blackberries, strawberries into each container equally. So you'll notice that I didn't even take the leaves off of the strawberries, and it really doesn't even matter. And you'll see why it doesn't matter, because we'll end up straining all the fruit and the little particles, or precipitate you could say, out of the wine, so we're only getting the liquid in the very end. So now that we have the fruit in, I'm going to go ahead and put in some sugar. So in each canister, I put 2 cups of sugar in here. Next, we're going to put water in. So in each canister, I'm going to put 6.5 gallons of water in it. So after getting the fruit and the wine and the sugar in, and everything mixed all together, the next thing that I do is put in this wine yeast. And you don't need to use the wine yeast because the fruit has yeast in it. However, if you use the wine yeast, it'll speed up the process. So instead of the fruit by itself taking about 4 months, if you use wine yeast, it might take about a week and a half, which is very nice. And again, I don't know if I said it, but the brand name is Red Star, and the actual packet is called Premier Rouge, and I think I got 10 of them for $7. And if you think about it, one packet makes 5 gallons, so if you get 10, that means 50 gallons. What I've already done is divvied out 1 gram, because a package is 5 grams total, 1 gram per gallon. I have 1 gram of that wine yeast, and I'm going to put 1 gram into each container, so, and then shake it up again. I do want to mention that while I'm shaking all these up, I'm holding the end of this hose so that no water or anything, for that matter, can escape out of here. And that does kind of show that there truly is a seal with the caulk. So what I've done here now is put the canisters where they're going to stay for about a week and a half. And each canister is what is known as waterlocked. So the hoses that were sealed with caulk on the top of each of these lids, they come out the top of the canisters, and they go through this little shelving piece just to more or less support the hoses so they aren't just like leaning over and falling due to gravity. So it kind of just holds them up. And then the hosing comes down into this glass, almost looks like a mason jar, except it's not truly closed, and it's just full of water. And what the water is going to do is create something known as a water lock. The hosing goes down and touches almost the bottom, and what this is going to allow for is whenever the fruit, the sugar, and the water goes through fermentation. There will be carbon dioxide as a byproduct, and the carbon dioxide is going to be almost like fill up the container to where if it was a glass container and you did not have the tubing on it, you could think about it. The glass could shatter because of all the pressure that is built up within the glass because of the carbon dioxide. So if we use the tubing, we're going to allow the carbon dioxide to get out of it, and at the same time, because the tubing ends in the water, the carbon dioxide can get out of the end of the tubing, but then nothing else can necessarily work its way back up into the tubing and then into the fruit. Something to keep in mind is that while I used 5 pounds of fruit and 1 3/4 pounds of sugar, as well as altogether 13 cups of water, and then I split that into 2 1-gallon canisters. You can do it however you want. You can go a lot bigger, a lot smaller, technically, but I went with this sort of setup because I just followed somebody else's ratios and then I just kind of went to Walmart and I figured that these 2 canisters being $2 each seemed about perfect for myself. I saw it and I went with it. So then based off of the size of the canister, I then decided what can I fit in there and how much of everything else should I do. But if you stick with the ratios, you can then go off of them and figure out what works best for you. I just want to point out exactly what this caulk looked like. Now, again, this is what I bought, and it's very simple to do, but I just wanted to show you how it looks, because I'm certain if you've never seen it and you just kind of hear me say that you put caulk around it, that it helped to at least see kind of what it looks like. Now, it's simplistic. It really is. You just kind of put caulk around the tube and around the canister, and we want to create a seal, and that's all that we need to do. It does not look pretty, but it works, and that's all you gotta do. So it's now the next morning. The last video that I would have showed you would have been the night before, around 11 o'clock at night. So now it's around 9 in the morning, and I just want to show you that the bubbling is going on. And it's not super quick, but it's just a slow, consistent bubbling. And that's how we're going to know that the process of making alcohol is going on. Now that I've let this fruit, water, and sugar sit for about 2 weeks, I've just been able to make alcohol or wine in here. So the next part that we got to do is basically take this mush and liquid and just get the wine out of it. So the first thing that we're going to do is put it through a strainer, and I'm going to strain out all of the mushy fruit that's left in it. After straining the fruit in itself out of the wine, we're left with, I hope maybe you can see, some wine that's got a bunch of little particles in it, some stuff that we're going to filter out a little bit finer than a strainer will. So what I have is a towel, just a hand towel, and I also have a bag full of clips. They're like paper clips. I don't know the exact term for them, but they can hold a whole lot more than a paper clip can. So what I do is just hold down the towel on the sides. And as we pour in this wine with the partial stuff in there, we're going to be able to more or less filter out whatever we aren't wanting to drink in the end. And I mean, you could drink it if you want to, but it's not ideal. Now it goes pretty quick in the beginning, and then it kind of slows down, because as the towel catches all the solids that's in here, it's more or less blocking where the wine can flow through. So I just take something like a spoon and kind of scrape along the towel, and it will kind of pull out all the mushy stuff, and then more or less open it up and allow the wine to actually go through and into the pot. Next is to filter it one more time, except what we're going to use next will not be a towel. Instead, we'll be using our coffee filters. So for right now, I'm just going to put this towel in this cup. And I just have regular coffee filters here. I use two. I don't really have a specific reason, but I use two. And the same way as clamping down the towel to this pot, we're just going to use these clips and clip down the coffee filter so that whenever we pour this wine into here, it will filter out further and be able to hold up when we pour stuff into it. And since it takes a little while, I normally have multiple cups and coffee filters that are going to be filtering it, just so it can sit off to the side and filter it. I'm now putting this towel back onto this pot because I have emptied this pot of like cloth filtered wine into these cups for the coffee filters to catch whatever could be left in the wine. So you'll see that this is what's left over, from filtering through this cloth. And honestly, I just take it out. And you just kind of need to get it off the towel so that there's less sitting in there whenever you go to pour more in. And it does not have to be perfect, but you just can't have it clogged up necessarily. And once it's clamped down, we're going to go and pour more of this juice that came right out of the strainer into this towel. Now I'm just kind of scraping whatever's left over out so we can kind of get off the towel and let some of the wine flow through a little better. Now that I've emptied everything that came out of the strainer through this towel and into this pot, taking the towel off, don't need it anymore, but since it's going to drip, I'm putting it into this cup. And I will continue to pour what went through the towel through the coffee filters. And whenever the cups get full, you can either put them through the coffee filters again to filter them further if you would like to. It doesn't matter how many times you do it. The more you do it, the more clear it will become. But it doesn't necessarily make a world of difference. It's still going to do just fine. So whenever the cup gets full, I go ahead and put it into whatever container I'm going to use to just store it in. So now that this cup is full, took the clips off, taking the coffee filter out of it, just putting it in this pot that's empty now, and taking the wine and pouring it into this shaker cup, just because that's what I have laying around. I'm also going to put new coffee filter in here, because that old coffee filter caught whatever little sediment or particle could have been in the wine, and it more or less you could think that it was full from filtering out whatever was in the wine. But I also need to empty this one and this one as well before continuing. So there's wine still in this filter, and it's dripping like that. I just go ahead and put it into the pot again and empty the cup. now that I emptied the rest of what went through the cloth and then also what went through the strainer, now just wait on these 3 cups to finish filtering out what is left of the wine. The last step is to pour some wine in a glass, get it cool or chilled down, and drink it.